This is a video that I've been wanting to record for weeks, dude. And you know what? It's perfect timing. It's perfect timing because with the chapter we just left off on, which I can't believe happened, yo, imagine telling yourself, I don't know, man, however many years ago, that you just finished reading a chapter where Rocks was boxing Garp and Roger. Like, bro, that by itself is worth the price of admission. But in that very same chapter, we got Dragon Excellence, man. Yo, what? Where's my notebook? Where's my notebook, man? Where's my dragon? I know it's around here somewhere. The dragon stuff, man. Hold on, where's that? Look at my boy. Hold on, bro. God Valley Instant, the thing I haven't been able to stop thinking about. What is one of the main reasons why I can't stop thinking about this incident? Monkey Dragon, bro. If there is one character that I would say, out of all of the characters that I was already excited for, you know, Blackbeard, that's it. My excitement for Blackbeard is now like tenfold. You know, y'all know how much I love Shanks. My love for Shanks and my excitement to see what happens with Shanks and his family stuff in the present time, times 10, right? Thanks to the God Valley incident. Same thing with maybe if we get Kaido and Big Mom again down the line. I'm so excited to see them once more, thanks to the God Valley incident. I can't wait to see more Garp stuff in the present time, thanks to the God Valley incident. But if there's one character that we've been waiting for the entire series since chapter 100 for us to get some more stuff on him, man, it's Monkey D. Dragon, dude. And for us to have gotten it in the God Valley incident, for me, is so special. Because in the midst of this place filled with nothing but legends, man, individuals who would be the future from this point forward. You have the future Yonko, right, with like Whitebeard and Kaido and Big Mom and future Pirate King and Roger, his future rivals, and like Shiki and Whitebeard, all the legends. Then the legends of this time period, right, with Rocks and Garp and Roger, and it's like, bro, there's the Shaggy stuff. So many things reverberated from this incident. But at the core of it all is a story about an individual who was tired of the status quo within the Marines and defected. The story of two individuals, a father and a son, who came to similar conclusions and different answers. They saw the same thing happen and they came up with different answers, man. A Garp who decided, I am going to stay as a Marine, as a symbol, a representation of those who will hopefully change the system from within, right? Like a representation of what a smoker could be like, or what he wanted a Kuzan to be like, or what we know Kobe is going to be in the future. And then Dragon, who takes the complete opposite approach and is like, yo, we're taking this thing on from the outside and we're striking at the top, at the head of the table, to ensure everything else falls into place, because there was no justice to be found there. And what's so beautiful about it from the God Valley incident standpoint is Dragon was just trying to do the right thing. Monkey D. Dragon, from the moment this arc started, or this God Valley incident started, was one of the most compelling characters. Why? Because he's powerless in the midst of legends. It's what makes Marineford so compelling, right? You think back to that arc, Luffy's in the midst of all of the legends in the verse at that point in time. Or not all of them, right? It's missing Kaido. Kaido could have been there. Shanks arrived later, and obviously Big Mom was out Big Momming. You know what I'm saying? But regardless, a lot of the pirates, especially on the Marines, or a lot of the legendary individuals, especially on the Marine side, and in the Legend of the Pirate era, in that particular time, Whitebeard, Luffy was in the midst of all of that, and you got to see how powerless he was in the midst of it all. But his desire to save his brother went beyond his powerlessness. That is why when he hit that legendary pose holding the log in front of the 3 admirals, it meant something. You're like, yo, he can't fight him. He can't fight 1, let alone 3, but he doesn't care. Because he wants to save his brother, man. His desire to save his brother surpasses all logic. And that led individuals like Whitebeard and everybody to want to aid him. Not only did they want to help in order to get Ace back, but they wanted to help him because of what he was bringing forth to the table, right? And so that's why Ivanka wanted to help him. That's why he brought his former enemies together. Buggy, Mr. 3, and Crocodile. Right? And it made Marineford really, really compelling because you saw somebody who was powerless in that moment. Luffy's a powerful character, especially now. But at that time, he was definitely a powerful pirate, but nothing compared to all the other individuals through Marineford, right? So that was an extremely, just a great page turner because of that. All of the dragon content that we got in God Valley was exactly like that. And it was a combination of what Luffy went through Marineford and what Kobe went through Marineford, where you have 2 characters who, from a Luffy standpoint, who really just wanted to save his brother, and a Kobe who was willing to throw his life on the line in order to ensure that justice could be found somewhere on this island. And so he threw himself in front of a Kainu, right? In order to make sure that he could do something about the situation at hand, even if it would cost him his life. We had Dragon exemplifying both of those here. And what was so cool about it is while he's going about this journey, while he's been entrusted Shanks and Shamrock and is attempting to save both of them, fails, mind you, at both of them, which makes it even more interesting for what could potentially take place here in the future with a Dragon and a Shanks and Shamrock, whom he might feel some sort of thing towards, right? He still has that debt he owes the mother, right? The mother asked him to save both Shanks and Shamrock. So who knows what could happen in the future with Dragon, Shanks, and Shamrock? I don't know. It's extremely exciting. You know, we've talked many a time about Dragon and Shanks fighting together potentially at some point in the future. But regardless, going back to the God Valley incident and everything that happened there, for Dragon to see what's going on, want to do something about it. You see how it's traumatizing him. You see how he's like, yo, no one else sees what I'm seeing? Like, am I the only one going insane? And so he goes about the situation, and then he also really wants to save Shanks and Shamrock. So he's taking these 2. He's powerless at the behest of all these legendary figures around him. There's chaos ensuing. Emu drops. It's like everything is going on, but he's still on this mission to want to try to save these 2. And at the end of all that, when he fails, quote unquote, because it's thanks to him that Shanks ended up with Roger, but in his mind, he fails at the mission that was given to him by Shanks' mom. And so when he goes back to the Marines, he's like, yo, no, bring it on. Luffy in front of, in Eni's lobby type of moment, which was a massive shout by the chat. But like, yo, bring it on. If y'all want to do something, if y'all want to do something about this, I will. And if anybody tries to stop me, try me. Try me, man. And I thought it was such a wonderful way to showcase someone who we know is going to be such a prominent figure in the future, right? The world's most dangerous criminal. And to see his future underlings in Kuma, Ivankov, and Guinea being at the core, at the center of God Valley. Guinea's the reason why this entire thing happened. Shout out to Quack 2 for summarizing this. But Guinea being at the core of all of this taking place, the one who called everybody here, right? And Ivankov, who was like raising everybody up, sort of like how Bello Betty would do in the present time with her ability. And then you would have Kuma, who was, I mean, you want to talk about MVP level performance, an individual who saved everyone, even saved Blackbeard and Eris. So it's Kuma's already legendary to me, and so to have a continued legend like this was just so cool to me. But there's still all the Revolutionary Army, man, and so I came out of the God Valley incident being so even more excited than I already was for the Revolutionary Army, for all of this stuff that's going to happen with them in the future, with the Holy Knights and all that stuff. And it's not even over yet, right? We still need to get the potential aftermath that we're about to see, maybe with the rest of the Holy Knights and the things that could happen between like Summers and Gabon. Similarly with the potential scar Garland's gonna give Whitebeard as he's leaving. All that stuff we still have to see. The God Valley incident is still not over, but the stuff with the Revolutionary Army so far has been so strong that I can't wait to see them again, man. And I think that's something that resonates true with the other factions as well. Going over obviously to Blackbeard, this entire flashback from the moment that Rox was brought into the picture as Blackbeard's father has elevated my excitement for Blackbeard more than it's ever been. And I've already been excited for Blackbeard because of the legendary introduction, right? From the moment he was first brought up into the picture back in Drum Island as a potential threat, all the way into his formal introduction in Jaya. He's always been a favorite of mine, man. A favorite of mine, from the piratey ways to the People's Dreams Never End to him always having ambitions that are so far and beyond that he even believes the Skype exists without even going up there. He's like, yeah, I don't need proof to know something like that exists. It's possible because of the world that it resides in. It's a peek into his psyche, right? And like anything's possible to Blackbeard. And obviously with the opportunist he is, and he's a fantastic villain in that regard. But I've always been excited for what Blackbeard's big overarching plan and overarching scheme and overarching everything to do with Blackbeard's character, what it could culminate towards at the very end. But as far as what he's doing in the present time, I've never been more immersed and interested than I am now. I can't wait to get back to the present time and see what Blackbeard's got cooking, because not only do we get the lineage stuff with the Davy stuff, which I still can't believe happened, bro. We got a chapter where Rox was talking directly to Ibu about Davy Jones and Joy Boy, and Ibu could do nothing about it. Probably technically Ibu did, but still, right? Like the most taboo of taboo subjects. You want to talk about the most taboo subjects. That's number one. You don't break up those two. And Rox did. And so it's like, it got me so excited seeing how Rox and Imu interacted both in chapter 1155 and the final part of this last stretch, right, of the God Valley incident. It makes it like my excitement for Blackbeard and Imu interacting is like, that might be the thing I'm looking forward to the most. It's like that and Luffy meeting Shanks as far as like characters meeting, right? Those two are right next to each other, man. It's gonna be insane. But going back to Blackbeard, I'm so curious as to his motivations, right? Because he has all the reason in the world to despise the Celestial Dragons. He has all the reason in the world to despise Imu. He has all the reason in the world to want to destroy everything. So I want to look into his psyche. I want to look into the rest of his backstory. I want to look into what his true motivations are as to what drives him to do all the stuff that he's doing. Because when you look at this flashback, you would think, of course, he would want to do all the stuff he's doing in the present day, right? But I feel like there's still a piece missing, a one piece, if you will, that's not giving us the full picture, and I really want to know what that is. And so, my excitement, obviously, for Blackbeard is extremely high. I want to talk about the legends of this era real quick. I guess starting off with, because we already talked about Garp earlier, I want to talk about Roger, bro. I think, I've talked at length about how much I've loved the way that Goldie Roger has been represented throughout the course of the entire story. And what this flashback has done is peel the layers behind the legend in a way that I was not expecting. And I've come out of this incident loving Roger even more than I already did. And the rest of the crew, obviously. I've always loved Rayleigh, man. That's my guy. And obviously we're getting close to Gabon here in this arc. And the rest of the Roger pirates. But Roger himself, I've talked at length before on how like Roger and Shanks scenes. Roger scenes, Shanks scenes, Whitebeard scenes, and Blackbeard scenes. Which is the reason why we came up with the 40 out of 10 concept. for those characters, because I've rewatched scenes with those characters so many times because they're so sparse and rare. But for us to get as much Roger content as we did in this flashback in the ways that I wasn't expecting. So when we got stuff like the panel of legend with all of the legends of the era striking Imu, seeing Roger being like, yo, Rox is losing his mind right now, nobody else can do anything about it, I'm gonna do something about it. And it's like we got to see exactly just how piratey these individuals are, and the Roger pirates, but we also got to see what changed them and set them on a course to the Roger that we know, right? And like the Roger before the legend. And I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't get enough of it, man. From the hands being thrown, because it's always nice seeing legends of the era throwing hands. But from a character standpoint, and every interaction, bro, the fact that Roger asked Garp to join his crew because he knew how much he was hurting within about what he was serving under. He was like, bro, if this is going to lead you to leave the Navy, you can join our crew until you get back on your feet. Like that meant something to me, bro. And in that moment, I completely understood why Roger felt like he could leave Ace to Garp, man. He could, bro. He could. And so that was so beautiful. So incredibly beautiful. And so I've come out of this flashback loving Roger even more than I already did. And that goes for the rest of his crew as well, bro, you know, and obviously the Shaggy stuff, and just so much love for all that stuff. But talking about the Rocks Pirates, man, you know, before I get to the main man himself, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom are three characters that obviously have had so much prominence in the last 700 chapters of the story from Marineford, because that's really when the Whitebeard hype really started coming into fruition for his potential invasion of Marineford. And then after that, obviously, we set our sights on Big Mom and Kaido. And so they've been such a main central focal point of the narrative for such a prolonged period of time. And in all three cases, we got looks into all three of their backstories, all three of their motivations, but there were still pieces missing for all three. And I think the piece that was revealed in this particular flashback gave us so much insight into why the three of them care about the things they do, right? Whitebeard, I understand completely two scenes now more than any other that before this flashback happened. Number one, the Squard scene. Squard stabbing Whitebeard to me has an entirely new meaning. Because he understands the pain of betrayal. True betrayal. Why? Because I guarantee Whitebeard feels like he betrayed Rocks. The same way Kaido does, the same way Big Mom does. I guarantee it. And so when his own son did that, in that moment he must have felt what he believed probably in his guilt, what Rocks must have felt. And that's why he was like, I gotta forgive my son. The same way I know Rocks must have done for me. And I love that. I love it, man. I love it. That's why I'm so sure it must have pained him so much to see what Blackbeard was doing at Marineford, man. And for him to tell Blackbeard, you're not the one Roger's waiting for, must have turned him apart, because that's Rocks' son. You know, and it's like, man, what the things that led him astray. So, and the fact that Whitebeard wanted a family above even the One Piece, this entire thing made sense to that, right? Like, that's what he valued. He valued having a crew of individuals around him that he loves and cares about. That is his treasure. That is his One Piece. He cares about that more than whatever's on Laugh Tale. He could have had that at any moment. That's what he values. And it traces back all the way back to what we've seen here in the Rocks flashback. And there's Big Mom. We know the utopia that she wants to create, her dream. We also know her final words and the introspection that she had at the very end. Obviously, I still think we're gonna see Big Mom again. But at the very end of the last time that we saw her, the One Piece, what Roger said. Those types of things to me have different weight after God Valley. Because now she knows what happened at the end of Rox's days. She knows what happened in Roger and Garp being the ones to take out her captain. She knows about the king of the world. I don't know if she knows about the existence, obviously. We don't know any of that, like whether about emus or any of that. But she knows about power. And what power bought in that moment? Power bought. A power bought. That even her captain, whose will is beyond any measure, started acting in ways that and Kaido and Whitebeard could not control. And they had to enact their own quote-unquote betrayal and split apart the Rocks Pirates. So what does Big Mom do? Big Mom creates a crew of family members and individuals whom she can control with her own information network. A utopia, a peaceful utopia where she can be the queen of that. How fascinating is that coming off of the God Valley incident and of the potential existence of Emu and her knowing of such a thing, and how power bought all of that, how information bought all of that. It allows me at the very least to look at Whole Cake Island and all of that stuff in a really interesting light. And then obviously y'all know how much I love Kaido, man. And Kaido's an individual that I love for a multitude of different reasons, but I think the Joy Boy stuff is in connection to Kaido has been one of the things that has fascinated me the most. And I think, and also the stuff with betrayal. And knowing his line, obviously, that he says, you know, when pirates feel like they're losing, you know, don't be surprised if they end up betraying you in the end, right? I think it adds a lot of weight specifically to King specifically and Kaido and their dynamic. I would even dare say to potentially Queen and some of the others as well, but specifically to King. Because when Zoro beat King and Kaido lost, what was interesting to me is what Kaido thought about in the end, which was his dynamic and his relationship with King, and what King talked about in regards to Joy Boy. Then, you know, the individual who would defeat you, or the individual who defeats me, is going to end up being Joy Boy, right? If such a person even exists. That King never betrayed Kaido. And I wonder if we ever see Kaido again, and we have King and Kaido together, and obviously the rest of the crew, the individuals who did not betray him. I wonder, because like I said, I think Kaido looks back on this maybe the most of what could I have done better? Because Kaido feels like the youngest. Kaido feels like the one that that didn't have as much experience, right, as the others. So a lot of this stuff was probably way more impressionable to him. So seeing that not even his great captain with all the power that he had, even he lost his mind in his, because he didn't know what was going on, right? The Reversi. Even someone like that lost his mind. Because like I said, I still believe all three felt that they must have been the ones that betrayed Rocks, because they know that the Rocks they knew and they followed would never do all the stuff that he did there at the end. So I guarantee there's something that must have been registering in their mind, that it must have been something, right? A connection to that blob thing, to Emu, even though they probably didn't even know what to call him, but it's still to Emu. So it all goes back to, you know, why Kaido wanted to become this beast of destruction, this individual that represents war and violence and all of that. And it may even go back to that, right? To those two ideas. Number one, to never get put in that type of situation ever again. We know that Kaido himself is a deterrent. Green Bull and the Admirals didn't even step foot on Wano because they knew that Kaido was there. They didn't want any piece of that. And it's because Kaido himself put himself in that position, right? That such a thing ended up being the case. So he sort of became a symbol of his own quote unquote piece, even though obviously he was doing, it's thanks to him that Orochi was doing a whole bunch of hideous, horrible acts here on Wano. But in his mind, he was still in control of the situation. I mean, Big Mom came out of the God Valley incident with two very similar things. As long as they're in control of the situation, they'll be all right, right? And Kaido looked at it through power, and through power of like physical power, violence. Big Mom looking at it through power and the means of information and manipulation and things like that. But through Kaido's means, I really came out of this entire section in a flashback. Number one, being reminded of how much I love this character, but also a good another look into what made him into the individual that he ended up becoming. And so if Kaido and Big Mom ever end up coming into the picture again, which I do expect them to, I'm looking forward to seeing how differently they act now. Because I'm sure, and I brought this up in conversation in the streams, I am sure that they see a lot of rocks within Luffy. I do. I think they do, man. And so I want to know what would happen because of that. I want to know what Big Mom thinks about the whole Pudding situation, right? Pudding right now is being held captive. Could we see a potential situation where Big Mom with Katakuri pull up on Island Full of Lead in order to attempt to get Pudding back? You know, we don't know. We don't know, man. And I've always brought up the thing with Kaido and Luffy, bro. I see them fighting together one day, Dragon Ball Z style. You know what I'm saying? That would be so hype. But getting off them for a second, because that's also been such a major focal point of why I've really enjoyed this flashback, is looking more into their psyche. But their captain, man, the individual we've talked about here the most, the dynamic between Rox and Emu, what they've said amongst each other, and how one leads the other to move. How Rox being here led Emu to come here. And everything connected to those two. Everything connected to Emu within this incident and within this flashback, leading us even closer look into Emu's psyche and how scarred Emu probably is from all of the stuff that happened in God Valley, especially with the Davy Jones and Joy Boy stuff. But also from a Rox standpoint too, it's thanks to Rox that I feel like almost every single part of that came from Rox has amplified my interest in where things could go in the story moving forward. It's thanks to Rox that we got to see someone go up to the Marijoa. What a legend. Go up to the Marijoa, box an admiral, kill the admiral, and then pull up on Emu and have a Conqueror's clash with Harold while name dropping Davy Jones. Then, of course, obviously, we had the incredible stuff with Rox and Harold, the incredible stuff with Rox and Roger. And then we get into the incident itself. And after getting used to seeing Rox and his crew and how we got them all with the Xebec fight and all that stuff, but just seeing how he acted, how he was doing this all. He moved from having the ambitions from being the king of the world. That was his ambition at the start of this flashback. To once he had a child and wife, his treasure shifted from it being wanting to become the king of the world to then just wanting to save his children. That is his child and his wife. That became his treasure. And it was so interesting to see that shift, right? And obviously that Harold and that Harold clash with Rox really was one of my favorite sections of this flashback. But seeing Rox and his trust, obviously, in Harold and all of the stuff that came of that. But everything that connected Rox to both Eris and Blackbeard is what made all that stuff so compelling once Rox was the thought of Rox and Doom Reverses came into the picture. Then once it happened, it just became such a tragic situation. And I'll tell you what, man, the chapter when, I believe it was 1164, when Rox got Doom Reversing, and his will popped him out of it, and he was not only talking smack to Emu, but he was thinking in his mind, just pulling out all of the world's taboos while wanting to do something about the situation at hand with his son and his wife, as well as having the sense of mind to reach out via the voice of all things to Roger and Garp, telling him to take him out before he does anything wrong. It's just, man, it's such a tragic character, such a tragic character, an individual who lived through life. Had a similar thing like Harold, right? Harold started off his journey in this flashback having very different values and a different treasure than he did in the current time in the flashback. And Rox was the same way. He started off his journey obviously valuing something else, and he ended it off valuing something completely different. And it just goes to show sometimes your treasure can change, especially through age, through relationships, through your connections. What you treasure and value changes, man. And we see how much Rox treasured his crew. We see how Rox treasured his friendship with Harold. We see how much Rox treasured his family, treasured his lineage, treasured his people, man. And so for this entire thing to have gone the way that it did, I was already really excited for Rox, and even coming off of the first initial introduction stretch, I already thought he was like one of my favorite characters. But here in this final part, he's just solidified the fact that he is one of the most epic and incredible characters that this series has ever offered, man. He is that guy. He is that dude, and forever has stamped himself as a legendary character within this verse, man. And it was just so special. There was actually a really beautiful comment that was brought up. I think it was in either the stream or in the YouTube chat, and I apologize for forgetting the commenter who brought this up. But it was like Rox and Rogers sort of represent two sides of the pirate life, right? An individual in Rox who was so legendary, and yet he never got to see his dream come into fruition. And then you have a Roger who was able to see his dream come into fruition. But once he saw that dream come into fruition, he realized there was still work that needed to be done, and thus inspired another era that would then be the ones to bring forth what they could not bring forth, right? Into the future. I have to wonder how Roger looks back on the God Valley incident post One Piece and Void Century context. Because my assumption is Rox has a piece of that context. He doesn't have the One Piece context in the Void Century context, because obviously Roger was the first one that found it. So what Rox found out through the lineage of the Davy, I wonder what that is. What did he know? Because he obviously knew a lot. He knew about Joy Boy. He knew a lot about the Void Century. But he didn't have the full picture. So I wonder, when Roger and Rayleigh and them, obviously having a connection to Rox, obviously having a connection to the present time and all of it, when they saw what happened in the Void Century, and Roger had an opportunity to reflect after that, in that year, right, between the Roger Pirates disbanding and then obviously him having a kid and then being executed, and obviously the execution leading into the Great Pirate Era, I have to wonder how he looks back on the God Valley incident with the context of the Void Century. Knowing what Emu actually is, knowing who Emu actually is, the thing that they fought back then, as well as Joy Boy, as well as Davy Jones, all of those things Roger had context of, as well as the potential, whatever him and Odin saw that led them to know that 20 years in the future, would be the time of legend. All of that stuff, I wonder what must have been their reflection looking back on God Valley. Same thing with Rayleigh. We saw how much finding the One Piece and all that changed Rayleigh. Look at what he became. It looked like a spark was lit back in him whenever he saw Luffy, right? So my excitement to see the Void Century is at an all-time high, because that in of itself is going to add so much weight, obviously, to the entire thing, but also just to this incident, because of how much weight this has, man. Especially the more we find out about Davy Jones and Joy Boy. So, the God Valley incident was just so special, man. From the Shaggy stuff, the awesome Rayleigh stuff, the Roger Garp and Rock stuff, the Dragon stuff, the Shanks and Shamrock stuff, the Blackbeard and Aerith stuff, the Rocks Pirates with Whitebeard and Kaido and Big Mom. It was just all of these chapters that we've been in for the entirety of this flashback, but especially for this God Valley section. I can't believe it happened. We finally got to see it. It's obviously not over yet. From what we've gotten so far, now that we've reached the climax of it, it has been unbelievably special and something that I will look back on very, very fondly for years to come. So I just wanted to talk about this because I haven't been able to stop thinking about the God Valley incident as a whole, and I haven't been able to make a video on the fact that I couldn't stop thinking about all these chapters, so I'm just put them all together because it has been insane, man. I can't believe all the lore drops we've gotten in regards to the Davy and Joy Boy and the Void Sentry and Emu, and it's just insane, man. And the potential stuff that could happen because of all of it in the future, it's so exciting, man. And like I said, my overall excitement for the present has never been higher, because I can't wait to get back to the present to see how Luffy interacts with Emu and how potentially Blackbeard interacts with Emu, and then what happens with Shanks and his family, what happens with Garling, what happens with Dragon. All of these things have been amplified because of what we got in the God Valley flashback, man. And it's been a real treat, bro. A real treat. We had Roger and Garp throwing hands with rocks, bro, and an emotional yet epic and flipping awesome battle, dude. So in that incredible spread that feels like fan fiction with with legends of the verse all fighting together against Emu. Come on, man, bro. We had three chapters straight of Rocks boxing Emu, the Rocks Pirates, Roger and Garp boxing Emu, and then Rocks himself boxing Roger and Garp. It's like, bro. And then with all of that, the emotional throw line with Aerith, Blackbeard, and Rocks. It's like, so big, man. And we know we gotta see Harold soon too, and we know this is gonna break his heart, bro, because of the final confrontation they had together. And it's like, it's so good, man. So shout out to the God Valley incident. It lived up to all of my expectations and more, and I can't wait to see how it all concludes here in either the coming week or in the coming weeks as we get back into the Loki section of this flashback before heading back to the present. But let me know what y'all have been feeling about the God Valley incident. Let me know your overall thoughts and what's been the stuff that you came out of this as like your major takeaways and the characters that were most amplified thanks to this entire incident, man. Because I'll tell you what, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, Monkey D. Dragon, Blackbeard, Shanks, characters that I'm so excited to get back and see more of in the present time. Same thing with Shamrock, man. You know, Shamrock, if something had just gone a little different, Shamrock potentially could have been things wouldn't have gone the way they did. It's like I really want to see what we have cooking with Shamrock, man, in the present time too, especially with this voice actor. But shout out, man. Shout out to the God Valley incident, man. Shout out, like I said, this Shaggy and Rayleigh too, yeah. Greatness. But man, Rocks, my boy, that's the legend right there, man. That's the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been this video. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Peak peace, man. Peak peace, dude.